Hello everybody. In this video we will try to talk about the ascendant, Gemini's, malefic and benefic planets. So basically here we are talking about the ascendant. So ascendant is your first house basically in your horoscope. So at the time of your birth, which sign is actually rising in the east, that becomes your ascendant and that is your first house. So if you are of ascendant Gemini, that means that when you were born and at that particular point of time, if someone sees in the east direction, then they found the sign Gemini in the east direction. So in the sky you can observe all the signs, Aries to Pisces, you can observe in the sky, they move, right? So for every 1.5 hours to 2 hours, the sign changes in the east direction, of course in every direction. So the moment you are born, and if someone sees in the east direction, and in that east direction, if a Gemini sign was rising, then yes, you are of Gemini ascendant, and ascendant means your first house in the horoscope. In the horoscope you have 12 houses. Now the ascendant Gemini is represented by a pair of male and female. So male and female combination it is represented with. And if you observe why, so there were so many analogies, we are not going to all of them, but if you say, if a male and female are in sexual intercourse, let us say, when sun is in the sign of Gemini, so automatically after 9 months, right, after 9 months, let us say, the fetus started developing in the sign of Cancer, when sun is in the sign of Cancer, then automatically when you see sun is in the sign of Aries, you will see the baby is born. So 9 months. So it's one of the noted points that they just wanted to embed the fact that in the ancient days also, in the ancient times, they clearly knew, that fetus development took 9 years. It takes 9 years. They knew this fact. So they tried to embed this fact in the symbols of different signs also. And of course, as a convention, it has been followed, and another one is a kind of self-centeredness is shown in the sign of Gemini, more self-centric. When you become very much self-centric, when you feel a complete self-centric, at the time of this male-female, combination, at that particular point of time, you become very much self-centric. You feel you want to get more and more from what you are doing, So that is another symbolism you can say, and another one is communication. It's the way to show the complete communication. In ancient times, they did not have this kind of scripting or anything, so they used to show the energies with some symbols. So this is one of the symbolisms. And also you can also say Gemini sign has some kind of romantic energy embedded inside, And what are the nakshatras present in the sign of Gemini? Just imagine. It is Mrigashira 3-4. So if you see from the first, Ashwini, Bharani, Kritika, so Ashwini, Bharani 4 padas in the Aries, and Kritika first pada is in the sign of Aries, and Kritika 2, 3, 4 in the sign of Taurus. So 3 padas are over in the Taurus. Ashwini, Bharani, Kritika. Rohini 4 padas are in Taurus. So 4, 3, 7 means Kritika 3, last 3, and Rohini 4 padas, and Mrigashira 1, 2. Ashwini, Bharani, Kritika, Rohini, Mrigashira. So Mrigashira, which is a Mars nakshatra, the 3, 4 padas of Mrigashira are in the sign of Gemini. So just imagine the energy here. The starting energy itself is Martian energy. So Martian energy is so much of passionate energy, right? And at the center you can find Arudra, Ashwini, Bharani, Kritika, Rohini, Mrigashira, Arudra, and then Punarvasu. So Arudra is a Rahu nakshatra. See, just imagine the passionate energy that Rahu has, the Arudra has, right? So Mrigashira 3, 4, Arudra 1, 2, 3, 4, and then Punarvasu 1, 2, 3. Punarvasu 1, 2, 3. Punarvasu is a Jupiter nakshatra. So the Jupiter energy, which is more related to the wisdom, you can say, right? So as a whole, if you observe the energy of Gemini, it consists of 2 portions of Mars, complete all 4 portions of Rahu, and 3 portions of Punarvasu, it's Jupiter. So amalgamation of this, the energy flow here is of Mars, Rahu, and Jupiter, right? So more it has Mars and Rahu energy, right? So generally the Gemini, the energy of Gemini is cruel in nature. It's self-centered. It's not affectionate, basically, right? So that is the negative side of this particular sign. And generally when a person is of Gemini ascendant, a pure Gemini ascendant, you can say the person may have cruelty and self-centeredness, and to an extent is not at all affectionate. Of course, other planets, other planetary energies also matter, but this kind of side is also present in the whole dish, you can say. What is the positive things of this particular Gemini ascendant, the Gemini energy? Basically, I am talking about the Gemini rising, right? The Gemini energy also, you can say. Completely Gemini I am talking about. So they have good oratorship. They are experts in business because they are self-centered. So when a person is self-centered, they try to find out the tactics to become very successful in business, right? So business-minded people, you can observe here in the Gemini rising, and trading or business, right? And good oratorship. These are the positive things that you can observe in the sign of Gemini. So basically, when a person is of Gemini ascendant, in general, people say the people are intelligent and wise and fearless to an extent. So that is the Gemini ascendant thing. People are intelligent, you can clearly see, because the Gemini ascendant, the whole energy of Gemini, the ruler of Gemini is Mercury. Mercury is always about the logical thinking, because you just imagine here Mars, Rahu, Jupiter energy, amalgamation of these three. So the energy itself is showing some kind of more logical thinking, because Rahu itself, it's always the out of the box thinking, or also always talking about the other side of the coin, right? So that is the Rahu's energy there, and Jupiter energy is regular, very systematic, rules oriented, and a kind of doing something good for the society kind of nature is observed in this Jupiter, very auspicious energy. And the Martian energy is, of course, doing the things forcefully, right? So if you combine all these things, it's a kind of mercurial energy it generates, the logical thinking and also the self-centered nature, to an extent cruel and not affectionate, because based on the situation, they react. Whatever is useful for them, they try to move to that side. So that kind of nature is observed in the sign of Gemini. So that is what the Gemini ascendant can be. So you can see it represents basically, in the normal Kalapurush Kundali, where Aries is the first sign and Pisces is the last sign, that is the 12th sign. Aries represents the face and a Taurus represents the speech and the throat part, then Gemini generally represents the shoulders part. And the favorable god for this particular Gemini ascendant is Ganesha, Lord Ganesha, because it's more related to communication, right? After all, it is a third sign, so communication aspect comes into the picture here. And it's a mercurial energy, green energy, the emerald energy you can feel here. Emerald in the stones, you can say the green emerald kind of energy, the Gemini. So Gemini ascendant is basically the mercurial energy you can feel here. And what are the favorable and unfavorable planets for this ascendant? Mars, Jupiter and Sun, these three planets are basically malefics for this particular rising. So when a person is having first house as Gemini, he has to take care in the antardashas of Mars, Jupiter and Sun. Of course, Mahadashas to an extent, but antardashas are really important here, because Mars, Jupiter and Sun said to be the malefics. You can clearly see Mars is the 6th lord and also the 11th lord, even more it's 11th lord, you can say, because the Mula Trikona house is the 11th house, that is the Aries. So, but at the same time it is the 6th house, and you should not neglect the 6th house energy. So, Martian energy is not so good for this particular ascendant, because the amalgamation of this Mars, Jupiter and Rahu, which is leading to the mercurial energy, is very soft, at the same time a kind of cruel, at the same time a kind of not affectionate energy, and also business minded, and very soft. The mercurial energy is always soft. So they don't like this kind of very hard approach. They may want to do it at least in the initial part of the days, even though because of other planets they may be very harsh, but as time passes by, they try to plan, they try to act based on some plans. They don't do the things without plans. So they have some self-centered plans, and based on that they execute the plans. So there is no harsh approach, there is a cunning approach, you can say, right? So there is a chance of deliberate thinking, and then coming to a conclusion, and then finally execute the plan and get the things done, right, as per their wishes. So this is the approach, this is the energy you can observe here. So Mars is basically a malefic planet. That's very reasonable here. So clearly Mars has some malefic things to do with Gemini ascendant, and another malefic planet is Jupiter. So as Jupiter is the 7th as well as the 10th lord, you can see there is a dosha called as Kendra Adhipatya dosha. Kendra Adhipatya dosha, because whenever a planet rules two Kendra houses, so Kendra houses are 1, 4, 7, 10. So two Kendra houses, and the two Kendra houses must be other than the ascendant, then the Kendra Adhipatya dosha is more. In that case, the Kendra Adhipatya dosha is more. If you take the Sagittarius ascendant, there also Jupiter is the lord of the 1, 4 houses, but as ascendant is involved, so the Kendra Adhipatya dosha is reduced to an extent in the case of Sagittarius because of Jupiter. But here for Gemini ascendant, because of Jupiter, the Kendra Adhipatya dosha is more. So the placement of Jupiter is very much important in the case of Gemini ascendant. So let us say for a Gemini ascendant, if Jupiter is present in the 9th house, then he may create problems in the 9th house things to an extent. So let us say for Gemini ascendant, the Jupiter is present in the 9th house, that is Aquarius. So if Gemini ascendant people are doing some higher learning, they are doing some PhD or some higher learning, then they may face some issues there, or whatever 9th house things, the religious things. 9th house is higher learning. Higher learning is always related to the the higher studies. like PhD, and also the religious things, because ninth house is religious things, and ninth house is also Guru. It means it's related to the gurus, the lecturers, especially in the higher learning, in the PhD, or and also ninth house is related to the luck. So presence of Jupiter in the ninth house Aquarius for Gemini ascendant may bring some bad luck too. So this kind of people, they have to do some propitiations for Jupiter, then only their ninth house burden would reduce to an extent, or the ninth house burden may not be very painful if you do the propitiations related to Jupiter. So Mars, Jupiter, and another malefic planet for Gemini ascendant is Sun. So Sun is malefic here because he's the lord of the third house. That's one thing. And you need to check the position of Sun as well for a better understanding of the horoscope. So Sun is also malefic to an extent for Gemini ascendant. For a Gemini ascendant, there is an old saying, the conjunction of Saturn and Jupiter is really terrific. It's terrific in the sense negative way I am saying. It's not very good for the existence of the native itself. In olden days, whenever a Gemini ascendant has Saturn and Jupiter conjuncted in a house, they used to say that person may die. So it inflicts death, basically, people used to say. Saturn and Jupiter conjunction for Gemini ascendant is not so good, because Saturn is the lord of the 8th house. Of course, it is the lord of the 9th house as well, but it is the lord of the 8th house. 8th house is the house of death. So, and Jupiter, of course, it is always there to create some kind of pain for Gemini ascendant people. So the Jupiter and Saturn conjunction is not so comfortable conjunction for Gemini ascendant people. For more better understanding, you may also need to check the nakshatras in which this Jupiter and Saturn are also present. If the nakshatras are also very bad, let us say, then means the nakshatra lords are also very badly placed somewhere, then the Jupiter-Saturn conjunction is really, really bad. And Venus, if you see, Venus gives good results as she is the lord of the 5th house. That's Libra. There's a Mula Trikona house as well. Venus, the two own houses are Taurus and Libra has some special power also with respect to Venus. That is, Libra is the duty performing house or the Mula Trikona house for the planet Venus. So Venus gives good results for Gemini ascendant. And lords of the 2nd and 12th houses are good or bad according to their association. That is the moon and the Venus. Of course, Venus is a good planet to an extent because it's the lord of the 5th house. But what it is associated with, this particular Venus is associated with Saturn or Jupiter, or if this particular Venus has an aspect of Saturn or Jupiter, then this particular Venus power, the good power of that Venus is reduced to an extent, right? But basically Venus is a good planet for Gemini ascendant people. But you always need to check the association and aspect of this particular Venus. If the moon is not conjoined with any malefic planet, let us say for Gemini ascendant, if moon is comfortably placed somewhere, then that moon is good. If moon is badly placed in a bad nakshatra, or if the moon has an aspect of this Saturn or the malefic Jupiter, then moon is also gone, right? So, as moon is also the second house lord, so the placement of moon is also very important with respect to the death of the Gemini ascendant, because moon is the second house lord, and of course second house is also called as the Maraka house. Second house and the seventh house, both are Maraka houses. So the placement of moon is very much important here for the Gemini ascendants. It should not be afflicted, or it should not have any kind of malefic aspects on it. So Venus, moon, these are good planets to an extent, but you need to check the association and the placement of them. But the malefic planets are Mars, Jupiter and Sun. And Mercury and Venus are conjoined, let us say. Mercury is a very good planet for Gemini ascendant people. Of course, it is the ascendant lord itself. And we are saying Venus is another good planet for them. So if Mercury and Venus are conjoined, then you say there is a formation of Raja Yoga for Gemini ascendant people. The Mercury and Venus, when Mercury and Venus are conjoined, that is going to cause a kind of Lakshmi Yoga, a kind of Raja Yoga for Gemini ascendant people. Mercury is the lord of the ascendant, and Venus is the friend of Mercury even more, right? And it is the fifth lord also. The Mula Trikona house, Libra, is the fifth house for Gemini ascendants. So Venus becomes highly benefic in this case. The Venus-Mercury conjunction is a beautiful conjunction, but where it is actually formed needs to be analyzed. If it is forming in the 8th house, of course they may gain a lot of money as an ancestral property, but you need to check the nakshatra placement also here. Means where this Venus and Mercury are placed in the 8th house and which nakshatra, and the nakshatra lord's placement also. If everything is good, yes, you can definitely say that kind of native can get a lot of ancestral property. So let us say for Gemini ascendant, the Venus and Mercury conjunction is formed in the 8th house, that is in the sign of Capricorn, and let us say in the nakshatra of Shravana they met, and the Shravana lord, the lord of the Shravana nakshatra is moon, and moon is somewhere comfortably placed without the aspect of Saturn or the malefic Jupiter here in the case of Gemini ascendant. Then just imagine the person may have this kind of very good gains of ancestral property. It's highly benefic basically. And let us say the Mercury and Venus are, let us say they met in the sign of Libra itself, then just imagine. So basically, if you observe the conjunction of Mercury and Venus for Gemini ascendants, then it's a very, very good thing. And the goodness of this particular conjunction is reduced if it has some Saturn's aspect. It can be third aspect or seventh aspect or 10th aspect. And of course, even though Jupiter is malefic, the aspect of Jupiter can be a good thing. It's a debatable thing. Generally, the fundamental thing in astrology is whether Saturn is malefic or benefic to your ascendant. The aspect of Saturn is always malefic, and whether Jupiter is malefic or benefic to your ascendant, the aspect of Jupiter is always benefic. So these two principles are followed across all the astrological literature. So a Mercury and Venus conjunction is good, and the goodness is reduced if there is a Saturn's aspect. So the moon's placement is also going to play a major role. Moon also said to be a kind of, to an extent, around 60%, the moon's period, the moon's Antardasha is also not so comfortable for Gemini ascendant people. But as a whole, you can say Venus and Mercury, these two are the saviors for Gemini ascendant people. And if there is no malefic aspect or negative placement of Mercury and Venus, then these people are lucky enough, you can say. And the Rahu and Ketu, of course, they behave based upon the placement. Rahu behaves like the sign lord if it is not in conjunction with any other planet. The same works with Ketu also, but if Rahu or Ketu, if they are in conjunction with any planet, then they behave like the planet itself. So we'll talk about Rahu and Ketu more in some other video. So for Rahu and Ketu, for any ascendant, you need to look for the placement, means the house placement, the sign placement, and also the nakshatra placement. So this is about the Gemini ascendants, benefic and malefic planets. So Venus and Mercury, completely benefic. Moon, 60% it can be malefic and 40% it can be benefic, you can say. And Mars, Jupiter, Sun are the malefic planets. So Venus and Mercury are the saviors, and the conjunction of Venus and Mercury is always a very good thing. And Saturn is a kind of, it's also the 8th lord and also the 9th lord. So it's a 50-50 planet for Gemini ascendant. So that's about the Gemini ascendant. So Jupiter and Saturn conjunction is always bad for Gemini ascendant. And how much bad you can also understand based upon the Jupiter and Saturn conjunction, in which house, in which sign, in which nakshatra it's happening. Thanks for watching this video.